Hello neighbors, it's Brad here at eTrailer, and today we're taking a look at installing the Roadmaster base plate on a 2024 Ford F-150. Now your base plate is going to be one of the main units that you're going to put on as far as components for flat towing on your F-150 to get it to tow down the road. And a base plate is really going to be your structural mounting point to the frame of the vehicle to allow you to be able to, tow it safely down the road. But some base plates are really good at giving you mounting points for the rest of your components, and this is one of them. This allows us to easily mount up our breakaway switch as well as our 6-pole. And as someone that's installed a lot of different flat tows, pickup trucks tend to be a little bit more difficult, not necessarily because of the install, but because trying to find a mounting point that's going to be a solid metal spot is really hard on trucks these days. They just really don't have metal bumpers as much, a lot of plastic, and so you're left really having to fabricate to make it look good, and that's not the case here. So huge thanks to Roadmaster for that R&D that went into that, and also really throughout the entire kit. The instructions are really good, and our removable arms sit where the factory tow hooks are located. So you are going to get rid of those tow hooks, but you still have safety chain loops here, and they sit recessed, so it's really clean. And the same goes for our components. I was able to get these to be pretty well flush with the front of the F-150, and more times than not, when you flat tow a vehicle, once it's all set up aesthetically, some look better than others. This is one that I think really looks good. And so when you're going down the road, this is what it'll look like, pretty clean. You can take off your breakaway switch, or at least the, extended orange cord here, but to get this ready to flat tow, your arms are going to be super easy. You just push them in, give it a quarter turn, and snapped into place. So to remove it, same thing, you're going to pull this pin, give it a quarter turn, and that's going to come out. So pretty easy. So with that being said, I'm going to get these in place. I'm going to get my truck pulled up enough to where we can hook up our tow bar, and I'll show you how all of this hooks up and how it looks hooked up. We're going to be using an eTrailer XHD tow bar, which is a great unit that's going to be heavy duty enough to tow something like an F-150 down the road. And also if you ever go to a larger vehicle, you can keep this one. But something that's unique is Roadmaster has a wider arm. And so it requires a larger diameter pin that is not really common on any other brands. But if you have a different tow bar, not to worry, you can get adapters. But pretty simple here, this goes all the way through, and there's an opening, a little pinhole at the top here, and that's to get your linch pin in place. So that way that pin can stay in place. And then from here, we'll get our safety cable attached to our mount. And we also have our diode wiring. We'll get that plugged in. Our breakaway switch. And then just the other side. And something else that's important is making sure that you have a high-low adapter so you're traveling safely down the road. So first I'll measure our base plate. And so from the ground to the center of our pinhole, it's right at 16 inches. So that's going to be important because you're going to want to measure the height of your hitch on your RV from the ground to the center of the hitch pinhole. So for instance, ours comes in today at about 20 inches. So 4-inch difference is not really something you're going to want. The minimum threshold of difference should be 3 inches, and that's mostly to keep that tow bar as level as possible. It's not going to bind it up in any weird ways. And if you had just a traditional tow bar, you would probably need a small riser drop high-low adapter, which we have plenty here available at eTrailer. If you're buying a tow bar, ways that you can get around that difference a little bit is going to be a Demco or an eTrailer tow bar, where you can see our shank has this built-in drop. It can also be a built-in rise by unbolting, turning that shank over, and that's a really great way to have to be able to adjust that height difference without having to get a high-low adapter. So if that's something, when you measure yours out, you have a big difference, sometimes you can mitigate that. I believe this has a 1.5 inch built-in rise or drop, so that was enough to put us in that window. With all that being said, here's how it looks all hooked up. Super clean, nice wide spread. So overall, very, very impressed with this. This was the first time I've done this kit on an F-150, and Roadmaster just keeps making improvements to their base plates, whether it be tabs for wiring to be zip tied or our mounting brackets that we have today. And that's where this is more of the premium base plate across other brands, but Roadmaster, great products. I personally like them for an installation standpoint, so that's something that's going to be dependent on your budget, and also, are you doing this yourself? If that's the case, Roadmaster for the most part I think is the easiest of the base plates to install, and I really like the quality of them, but really all of them are going to accomplish the same thing. The main thing is making sure that you get adapters for your tow bars to work specifically with those base plates. And again, it's going to be one of those components that really sets the framework for the rest of it. And with that being said, the installation does require the grill and this lower grill portion to come off, as well as the bumper. Great time to get the rest of your components knocked out if you're doing all that the same. But if you watch this video and maybe decide you don't have the place, the time, the tools, or even the want to do it yourself, you can still get this installed by finding someone close to you using our dealer locator. And that way you don't have to worry about those flat tow installations. You can really just take your vehicle somewhere, have them install it, and then you can be flat towing down the road without having to worry about the installation. But for DIYers, none of this vehicle is actually fairly easy to get set up on a flat tow, and this base plate is fairly simple compared to some of the other ones out there. So take a look. I think this is something that you can handle and get installed yourself, and I'll walk you through step by step. So let's take a look at that installation. To begin our installation, really a lot of the steps are going to be removing the front fascia to allow us to get everything bolted up. And something that Ford has done is their plastic push pins don't have a center section that normally you can pop out. Makes it a little bit easier. These are going to be something that you're going to probably want a trim panel tool on. It makes it a lot easier to wedge underneath, and once they're completely underneath you can pry that out, where a flathead screwdriver you can kind of do that, but these pretty flexible, so having this to pry them out is going to be key. And something I'll point out is we're going to have a lot of hardware that we're going to be removing. I highly suggest having a nice organized spot to keep everything. It'll make reinstallation a lot easier. Now there's a ton of plastic clips just like this that we're going to remove, but some of them we don't need to. So you'll see the 4 that are on the inset of this panel. We're just going to be removing any plastic clip that attaches to this panel. So as we go through, you have some that go on the air intake, all of these, as well as the ones up top. So we'll get these all removed to a point where we can remove the panel. Once you get those pried out, you can lift up your intake tube, and we should be able to pop this out, and we'll set this aside for now. Now, you may still have your trim panel tool handy, and if you do, we're going to be tackling the plastic push pins that are on the corner of the headlight right by the front fender. So there's one on each side. We'll get those pried out as well. With that panel removed, that's going to give us access to the 10mm bolts across the top on the core support, and there's going to be 4 of them, so we'll get those removed. And we have an electrical sensor that's right by the hood latch release. We're going to want to unplug this, and you may have another line if you have a front camera and it's got a windshield washer squirter nozzle there. You may need to remove that as well. There is a plastic Christmas tree, as we call them, that goes into the plastic. We're just going to pop this back because as we pull the fascia off a little bit later, we don't want any connections. Now we'll head to each wheel well, and you're going to find that there's 2 7mm screws on each side, and this whole lower portion we're going to be taking off. So we'll get them removed, and then I'll show you how to pry them back. Now we'll be getting this whole thing popped off, so you might want an extra set of hands, but what I do just to prevent any chips or scratches on our clear coat or paint is put some painter's tape on each edge. That helps as we pull it back, but it's not going to rub against each other. And also we can leave this here for when we reinstall it, just to, you know, make sure that our vehicle doesn't get scratched or damaged in the process. Now to get this popped off, you're just going to pull back on that outside edge and just keep pressure along here. And once you get this popped off, you'll just go to the other side, and there's going to be clips on the front too, but it should be fairly easy to get pried off, and then we can get this whole thing removed. Now as I go back, I noticed that there's some locking tabs here, so I'm using a plastic trim tool. If you have a small pick, that might actually work pretty well, or a flathead, and we're just going to pry that up and it should release it. If you need to, you can put just some shop towels or stuff to just create this void to kind of keep that pressure on the tab, and that way it's going to draw back and just, you know, not lock back in. I am going to grab a small pick, and you can see that I'm just going to pull that hook up and it should draw it out. There we go. So this part snaps in. It's kind of tricky, but this is where we're going to be prying. Just take your time. Don't break the clips because you want it to be able to snap back in. And it seems like as we go along, we're going to be running into the same similar style clip. So we're going to need to pop those out as we go until we get all of it popped off and we can remove this. What I found is I think a thin plastic trim tool is going to be the best bet. You just kind of wedge this with putting pressure and then it'll pop out. They are completely across the front, and some of the clips are a little bit different, but I think that prying method still kind of works. This one I'm going to have to just raise up a little bit over. So kind of tedious here, but again, just try not to break the clips. That's our main goal here. And once those are all popped out, we can set this aside. Now with that section out, that's going to give us access to the 10mm bolt. It's going to be in this housing that's the square. There's another one over here, but we're going to leave that. But we'll get this removed. You're going to probably need an extension, and then we're going to go to the other side and get that one as well. Our next step is to remove our grill, and there's going to be some clips along here, and you're going to want to take your time. This goes around the headlight, so this whole bezel really just pops off. And what I would recommend doing is if you pull straight back, the tabs are molded into the headlight. They kind of go straight back, but we want to get this loosened up. So putting some tape on the edge and using a plastic trim tool might help you get some leverage. Again, just take your time. We don't want to crack this. And what might help too is on the bottom, if you just kind of pull on here, that'll loosen up those clips. And once you get the other side popped out, we'll be able to draw this back. And as you can see, there's alignment tabs and clips. They all face forward. So the main thing is you're popping those, but pulling back. So from here, you should be able to draw this back. And now's a good time, double check, make sure you don't have any connections. It really comes down to what trim you have, but this whole section should come out. If you need to remove those attachments, go ahead and do that. And then we're gonna set this aside. We're gonna need to remove the wiring harness, and so you can just pry on the bottom of that, and then you'll see that it continues on. These white plastic Christmas trees are holding our harness in, so if you just push it from the back side, a lot of times with like a screwdriver or something like that, we should be able to get these to pop out fairly easily. And we'll bring that harness with us. If not, you can pry on that back side. That is a little bit easier. Oh, mine came off the clip here, so just take your time. Now as I pop these out, there's going to be one that's tucked behind this bracket. So essentially what we're going to do is make sure that the wiring harness is not attached to the bumper in any way, because the bumper is going to be removed and we don't want those wires attached. So I'm going to pry back here, and it seems like there's another one on the other side. So main thing, we get our harness to where it's completely separate from the bumper. And even as I go further back, there's some that are going to be tucked back here. I can just simply push that out with my fingers. And from here, it looks like it's loose, and I think once the bumper's off, we should be fine. Just make sure any of those plastic clips are separated. Grab a ratchet and a 21mm socket, and we're going to find that we have 3 nuts on each side of the frame, so a total of 6. And we're going to be taking those off to get the bumper taken down. Now, the bumper can be a little bit heavy, so maybe grab an extra set of hands to help you. And we're going to be retaining the nuts for later reinstallation, so once you loosen them, just make sure you hold on to them. Now you might want an extra set of hands here. With all those nuts removed, we should be able to pull these straight back to where those studs slide off, and we're going to find out pretty quickly if we missed any of those plastic clips. There shouldn't be attached, but we'll see. So pulling straight back here, it does look like our wiring harness even with that popped off, it does run off to the other side. So we're gonna undo our main harness. So if you're watching this before this step, you might wanna do that first. And to do that pretty easy, we're gonna take this plastic arm here and pop this down. And these can be tricky here. You wanna press on this portion, that'll unlock. And then as you pry this back, our main harness should be able to slide out like so. And that's gonna make it to where we can get our bumper completely removed. Now it's possible that your tow hook covers remained on the truck, or they might be with your bumper more than likely. So if that's the case, we're gonna just pop these out pretty easy. They're just kind of sitting in place. Now we're going to remove our factory tow hooks, and it's just a 15mm socket. You'll see the studs sticking through on that plate. So once we get the hardware removed, that's going to get our tow hook removed, and we can grab this nut plate. None of this is going to get reinstalled. So once you take it off, you can do whatever you want with it, but for our purpose, we will not be using it. Now our main receiver brace for our arms are going to go around where this is located. And to mount it up, we have this nut plate, and these are just welded on and then powder coated, so a lot of times the threads can get built up. So I recommend grabbing one of your bolts, it's the fine thread, and just work the bolt through. If you're starting to get any resistance, it's going to make it tricky as we try to bolt this all up. So you can take a 3/4 inch socket and run that through, make sure that you can actually thread it in place. And once you do that for both nut plates, we'll just put this in place here, and then we can start getting our hardware ready. You're going to want to grab your fine thread bolts and put a split washer on each of them, one long, one short, and this will be the combo for each side. We have some thread lock on here as well, so make sure you get that coated up nicely. And then we'll grab our brace, and they are side specific, so your safety chain loop should be on the outside of the vehicle, and you'll see the holes that go through and then bolt up. So our shorter one obviously is going to go through here, whereas the longer one will go through the armed portion. And we're going to raise this up, and I'm going to get a few threads started on here to just kind of hold that in place for me. Once you get that one started, we'll do the same thing for our other bolt. Now I'm going to snug these down. We're not going to get too crazy here. I just want it to sit flush and flat. And as we tighten, we want these as straight as possible. And you're also going to want to take a look at this outside, because we're going to be using that as a template for drilling. So as I hold this up, eventually we have the large spacers in our kit. They're going to slip in between this portion and the frame. So hold this up. There should be a slight gap there. That's totally fine. But having it snug means that this hole, which doesn't exist in the frame rail, we can drill that out using this, and then we're going to run a bolt through that. So first step, let's get this snugged up. A 3/4 inch socket should be able to accomplish that. Now I got this kind of dialed in exactly where I want it, and we're going to grab a 17/32 drill bit, and you're going to want a long one that's going to be able to pass all the way through the frame rail. And we're going to just get this drilled out, because eventually we're going to pass our bolt in. So keep it as straight as possible. It might be worthwhile. You can see inside once you get the one hole drilled. Make sure it's completely straight, and then drill out the other side. So you may want to start with the pilot hole. I'm just going to get at it with my 17/32 and get this drilled through. We'll get our bolt in place, and then we'll do the other side. So let's focus on our driver's side for now. Now you're going to want to grab your large coarse threaded bolt, and this is going to pass all the way through. We do need to put our spacer in between our arms and the frame, and mine shifted a little bit here, so I'm going to loosen that up so we can get this sandwich in place, and then we can pass our bolt through. So it might be worthwhile just test to make sure that you got this drilled out to where it can pass all the way through. Looks nice and straight. So I'll get this loosened up and then put this block in place. Once passed through, I am going to put some thread lock on here. We'll put our other spacer and then a split washer and then our nut. And then we're just going to repeat this same process on the other side. So we'll meet back up when we have both sides ready to go. Once you have your hardware passed through, we're going to snug everything down, and we'll be coming back with a torque wrench, so no need to use an impact here. These were still kind of tricky for me to tighten down, but 3/4 inch socket for that. And then on the bolt that we passed through, we're going to want a 3/4 inch wrench on the head of the bolt. And then on the other side, I have my socket, and I'm going to snug this down. Again, we're going to have a torque wrench coming in right after this, so you don't need to get crazy. We just want to get everything snug. And now we're going to attack those bolts again, but with our torque wrench. Torque setting is found in the instruction manual, and you're going to want to adjust your torque wrench accordingly based on the hardware. This is all 1/2 inch hardware, so all the torque settings should be exactly the same for all of ours. So we'll go through, and when torquing down the side bolts, always try to put the torque wrench on the nut side. It really does give you a better torque reading, or more accurate one. And then once we go through and get all of the rest of it torqued down, we can move on. Now this portion of our base plate is maybe something that you're saying, well, what does this do? And this is a massive inclusion because normally when it comes to trucks, this is kind of it for the base plate. And then you're left trying to find spots to mount up your breakaway switch or your 6-pole or any other brake functions. And it's really kind of gets tricky and you have to fabricate. So Roadmaster has done a really good job of making a bracket that's going to account for our 6-pole as well as our breakaway switch. You also have spots to zip tie up wires. So really, really cool idea. Now, it should work just fine for most of them that are open. So in the instruction manual, the truck has a license plate and then these portions are open, making to where this is just kind of drop in and go. Ours is an STX model, and this whole plastic is filled, so I'm going to probably end up popping this out and trimming this so we can still maintain our license plate mount, but that way we can get our mounting spots in place. And this is just really simple. You're going to use just the 10 millimeters that are located here, and it's going to bolt up. So if you have those holes, you're home free to be able to just take those nuts off, tighten it down, and then that should be in place for you. But if you're kind of in the same situation as us, as this is full, I'm going to pop this out and then I'll let you know what I had to do. We are going to end up coming back and trimming out some portions here for our arms to pass through. So I'll get this taken care of and I'll let you know how it went. So with ours, I've come up with a plan and I started pulling off a bunch of plastics to try to get this grill insert to pop out. And you can do that, but really it's not going to gain you a whole lot. It might actually be easier to do this while it's still attached. But we do want to get our license plate bracket out of the way because the license plate bracket goes wide enough to where I think if we cut for the opening, that it's going to cover up any of our cuts, at least on this portion. And to get this popped out is actually pretty easy. You just push the tabs down, and then there's also ones here you'll push up, and then this just slides out. So my whole goal is to make sure that we maintain or retain all of the mounting for the grill as well as our license plate, so that way we're not really sacrificing anything. And what that means for us is we'll go to the front and we have a cutting blade on a multi-tool. And I found that this generally gives you the cleanest cuts, but if you have a Dremel or another cutting method that you want to use, by all means, whatever you're comfortable with to get those nice clean cuts. So the bumper's kind of flipped upside down. This is the bottom portion, but the wider tabs for the license plate bracket, I think what we'll do is cut about a 1/2 inch wider, and we're going to cut all of this grill portion out, and then we'll do the same on the other side. So as I mentioned, I really like using a multi-tool on this. It does keep it nice and clean, and you can get into these lines. We'll come back a little bit later with the file, but for now, we're going to go straight down, cut this out, and then we'll do the other side. all of the flashing, you can take a file to this or just like a flat blade and just kind of get this as smoothed out as possible. The more time you take making it look clean, every time you hook everything up, you're going to be a little bit happier with the finished product. So I'll get my other side cut out just the same as this, and then file that down, and then we can mount up our bracket and see how it looks. So with that cut out, now we should be able to test fit this in, and we shouldn't have any clearance issues. So this will make it really nice for us to get everything hooked up and also run our wires long term. So I'll get my license plate put back in place, and then we'll take out these 10mm bolts and bolt this into place. Now to make clearance for our arms to go through here, we're going to be trimming this plastic flap, and it's about a ½ an inch down. My paint marker, not the cleanest lines here, but we're just going to notch this out, go down ½ an inch, and that should allow for that clearance. So with that trimmed out, we're going to get this mounted up, and normally with the base plate installation, we leave the fascia off because you're going to want to run all the wires and brake components. But with this one being cut out and having it pretty well open behind, we're going to be able to run our wires pretty easily. So I'm going to get this in place. I'm going to wait to put the grill and everything else back because I may end up needing that space to run things, but I don't think this is going to be much of a hindrance. Now, something else that I should mention is if your truck has the shutters on the bottom, there is some trimming on the air dam that you'll have to do. Ours does not have that, so I can't really show you what to do, but the instructions lay it out. It's just going to be a little bit of trimming for that clearance. But from here, I'm going to get this put back in place. I'm going to remember to get my plug back in, and we're just going to get those nuts tightened back down. So let's make sure that it fits. Now, something I would do if you did have to trim like us, we are going to mount the license plate back up, or at least mock it. And I found that my tab for my 6-pole is right on the edge. So what I did is I loosened up the bolts and shifted it down, and that got us pretty close. I think at this point I'll still be able to mount it up. It's pretty well in line with it, but I was able to shift that over. And once the 6-pole is in place, it's really going to look clean overall. So at this point, I'll get all of the rest of the components on, and like I said, I'm going to wait to put everything back up here until we're completely done, but it's really going to be just the reverse order that we took it off. So we'll catch up a little bit later when I have everything done. That way you can see where it's all mounted up. But at this point, you've installed your first base plate on a F-150. So we'll catch back up a little bit later and see how it looks. So I got everything put back together. All of our components are mounted up. Breakaway switch, I was able to bend the tab, mount it. It sits really nice on those supplied brackets. 6-pole, I did have to bend the tab slightly. If you're in a state that doesn't have a front plate, and if you take that front plate off, you'll be fine. But if not, I just bent mine a little bit. We still have full access. So overall, a fantastic base plate. If you have an F-150, Roadmaster really makes some awesome stuff, and this base plate is really testament to that. I mentioned that bracket that they include. Overall, a really easy installation, and everything was really nice. I mean, as far as fitting, so it looks good. It's using factory spots. So hopefully this helped you get your base plate installed. And if you have any comments, questions, if you have your setup all done, send some pictures. We'd love to see it. But that's going to do it for a look and installation of the Roadmaster base plate on a 2024 Ford F-150.